Welcome to the next training, guys, the weekly training. And as always, we're focusing on what I call the psychology of fat loss. There's two parts to weight loss and what I call permanent weight loss, sustained weight loss. There's what I call the skill set or the mechanics and the mindset or the psychology. The skill set we can teach to a 5-year-old in 5 minutes. It's control and track your calories, increase your protein, increase your step count, resistance training a couple of times a week. The four pillars that I talk about all the time. That is effectively fat loss. I believe that's about 95% of the puzzle. So the reason people often don't get the results or will lose the weight and never keep it off is the 95%, which is why every single week now we to complement what we're going to do through the 12 weeks and phase two, the modules that have been pre-recorded. I'm doing a brand new training every single week on the stuff that you guys need to know. And this is one. We've done self-limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, procrastination, all the things that keep people where they are. And it's always going to come down to, it's not the skill set that's going to get you the results. It's the stuff that goes on between your ears. Okay. And this is one part of it. And a lot of people will fall into this victim mindset. And almost once you take responsibility, that's when the needle starts to move in the right direction. Okay. So with that, so this is really the victim mindset explained. And I kind of touched on it. It's blaming external circumstances for your lack of progress. And we've all done it. Some people really fall into it. Some people almost, it becomes their identity. It's everyone else's fault but theirs. And I can tell you right now, the weight that you lose in the first 12 weeks for some of you, in the next 6 months for the rest of you, is going to come down to the things that you do week to week. There's a reason why someone will lose a ton of weight and why someone, I mean, everyone loses weight on the program. But ultimately, the number that you lose, the progress you want to achieve, is going to come down to the decisions that you make. Nothing to do with external circumstances. However busy you are, however much travel, whatever routine, there's always ways around that. Okay, because there's going to be people that have got more on than you that's still getting great results. Excuse me, I'm just going to turn my phone off because it will probably ring in the middle of this. So life's too stressful now. There's been the excuse for 5 years for a lot of people. Okay, and someone's almost waiting for perfect conditions that will never arrive. Spoke to two chaps actually a couple of weeks ago, and speak to guys all the time that say, I've got nothing on for the next 12 weeks. This is a great time to do this. And I'm like, well, we actually want you to go and get something on, because there's never going to be a perfect 12 weeks. We almost want someone to have lots happening, because if we can navigate around that, you're more likely to be able to lose weight when there's nothing on. But hands up, and I can't see you, but hands up if you've ever had a perfect 12 weeks where everything's gone amazingly perfect, nothing's gone wrong, and you've made all the money and there's been no issues. Like, no one's hand ever goes up, because it's just not life. And playing victim feels safer than taking ownership and risking failure, because when you're the victim, you can't fail. If you don't go on a diet, you can't fail the diet. If you don't attempt to lose weight, no one can say, point the finger out. I thought, what happened to that diet? I thought you were doing this. There's a whole host of things that go on in someone's head when it comes to playing the victim. And some will play the card a bit more than others. But we want to look at genuine reasons versus excuses. So a reason could be, oh, look, I had a work crisis and I missed one workout. That's a legitimate reason. That's not an excuse. An excuse is work is crazy, so I can't focus on health right now. Can you see how ludicrous that second piece is there? Work is crazy, so I can't focus on health right now. Health, I don't care what anyone says. Your own personal health is your number one asset, and it absolutely should be your priority. And you've made it your priority now. Now, this is what I truly believe. And some of you might disagree with me, but this is what I believe. Looking after yourself is more important than looking after the wife and the kids. Hold up. Because I'm not saying you're more important. When you're feeling good, lots of energy, sleeping well, you're in a great mood, you're focused, you're driven, you're determined. One, you make more money. True or true? Absolutely true. You're more confident, you take the lead, you become a better father, you're in control, which means the missus, the kids get a better version of you. So they're getting the best of everything. So it's not being selfish to look after yourself. In fact, it's the number one priority. And this happens more so with women, but not necessarily, but generally, again, I don't want to fall into get into trouble, but we'd probably all agree that the vast majority of women take care of the kids a little bit more than men. Safe way to say things. I think that would be true. Doesn't mean we can't, but that would be true for most people. So a lot of women will literally put themselves last. Kids come first, husband, partner, and they become the last priority on the list. It's very hard for some women to actually you're actually important, but a lot of men do it as well. And maybe you have done. Maybe you'll resonate with some of that. Now we're putting ourselves first, but not at the expense of others, but for them. Okay, there's a big difference. So reasons are temporary obstacles, and you're always going to have obstacles. The excuses are permanent opt-outs. Okay, so which one are you using right now? Just think about your life at the moment, and what have you done previously? Have you had a genuine reason? Is something a genuine reason, or is an excuse to not do the work that you need to focus on? Okay, think about that. And here's some of the victim stories. And there's 100. There's a couple that I came up with when I was putting this together. I'm too busy. Yet you watch Netflix 3 hours a night. When someone says they're too busy, I say, well, give me your phone. And then what do you mean, give me your phone? Show me your scroll time. There's Netflix, there's WhatsApp, there's half an hour on Instagram, there's LinkedIn, obviously. That's where you guys found me. So it's not about time. It's about priorities and finding pockets of time, priorities. Remember, think about this. The things that we value in life, was always time to get them done, isn't it? Think about the things that you really, really value in life. It's funny, there's always time for them. But the things that aren't valuable to you, they're the ones that get pushed back. And often health is one of those things. Okay? My kids take all my time, but the reality is they need that healthy parent more than the martyr. I can promise you this, if it was just using them as an excuse or staying alive an extra 10 years, what would your kid take? And you know the answer to that, guys. Work is overwhelming. No doubt it is. Okay, but I can promise you this, it's more overwhelming when you've got weight to lose. That's the reality. So we need to look at this job that we're doing, trying to lose weight, improve our health, optimize sleep, energy, all the things that you guys wanted when you came into this program from our conversations. We're doing this for the right reasons. And if we do this for the right reasons, it's actually going to improve all the things, all the victim stories that you may or may not have said to yourself, the excuses that people come up with. So it's reframing this. For all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing this, I can give you 10 reasons why you should. And it's all about protection. And again, sort of keeping you safe. And I kind of touched on this first on the very first slide. If it's not your fault, you don't have to do anything about it, which is why people blame their metabolism. They're big bones, and there's no such thing as big bones. I'm just hefty. I'm set well. I'm set big. I've always been this way. My parents have all, it runs in the family. I've got a slow metabolism. None of this is true. None of this is true. So blaming circumstances mean you never have to face your own choices because it's not your fault. Or when maybe you've tried, and this kind of ties very closely into self-limiting beliefs as well. If you've tried many things before, and I say that with the old air commas, you've tried many things before, it usually means you've tried a handful of things that were never going to work in the first place. And then you've given yourself evidence that it won't work. So then you can then tie that back to the victim excuse you've used. For example, you go on a diet and you only last 3 weeks on it, and it was never going to work anyway. And you didn't know how to track your calories, you didn't know what calorie deficit was. So you tried, you white knuckled it, you failed, and then you tell yourself, see, I tried that diet, it didn't work for me. And it always happens. Every time I go on a diet, I always fall off. So you're almost protecting and reinforcing your own bullshit excuse from the evidence you got from your own bullshit excuses. It's crazy. The brain will really mess you up. I remember that 5% to 95%. Skill set, piece of cake. You could Google it right now. How do I lose body fat? If you find the right website, there's a lot of websites will give you a load of crap. You find the right one, it will give you the things to do. And that's why the vast majority of this coaching is you'll find out if you're new to this, we're going to focus on what goes on there. That's what's going to get you to where you want to go. Playing victim keeps you comfortable because change and permanent change requires ownership. You've got to own those decisions, and you've got to almost move into a new identity. We talk about this a lot. And here's the thing: people wrap themselves up in their identity of being that victim. Hands up, again, I can't see you, but hands up people that constantly, someone that constantly plays this victim. There's always a drama. There's always, if something's going to go wrong, he or she has it. Put my hand up. I know a couple of people like that. Everything that can go wrong. Whenever you meet them, they're like, oh, you're not going to believe what happens. I'm like, go on then, tell me. That's how they almost get validation. People get sympathy for struggling instead of accountability for quitting. The big difference. But this is what actually taking responsibility means. So instead of saying, it's all my fault and I'm terrible, which we don't want to do that because we don't want to step into that shame, the bullshit. It's a bullshit way of think about it. It's think about saying these are my circumstances because these are circumstances. They're real, but I'm still responsible for my response. You're always going to be busy. There's always going to be obstacles. Things are always going to go wrong. You're always going to have travel, work, family, sickness. There's the thing. Look at the things that will go on in a normal calendar year. There's going to be everything, and everyone's got different amounts of different things at different time. But ultimately, we're all pretty much similar. The same stresses, money worries, business worries. On that note, on a side note, but it's also very relevant and not necessarily to do with this, but we can never be envious or covet what everyone else has, what someone else has. On the surface, it seems like that person might have everything. You don't know what they're going through. Especially I'm on the Instagram a lot, and it's a lot of bullshit. If you buy into that, you can make you feel like you're an absolute failure because everyone's doing something better. Everyone's got more money, better looking this, better travel, bigger car, bigger house, that constant comparison. But you don't know. Like I've met some of the wealthiest people that have been the most unhappy. So don't buy into that. Don't compare yourself to anyone. And this is very, very true when it comes back to what we're doing with regards to losing weight. Okay. But look, the stresses are real. Being stressed is real. Being tired is real. Being busy, being sick, all these different things. There's going to be obstacles. But ultimately, if we then say, I couldn't get anything done because of this, if it's a genuine reason, you're absolutely sick as a dog, you couldn't walk, you couldn't track your calories, and you're in bed, absolutely. But if you just felt a little bit tired when you could have done your steps, or, I don't care how you are, how you feel, you can always control what you put in your mouth, always. Now, whether you want to or not is a big difference, but you always can. See the difference when you start to take ownership of your decisions. That's when you become powerful and you step into the results, because what anyone's going through, someone's got a lot more to deal with and they're still getting results. Jumped ahead of myself, but here's the brutal truth about your excuses. People busier than you are getting results. People more stressed than you are making it work, and people with less time, support, money are transforming their bodies, because it's not about that. This all come back down to having a massive reason why, and we're going to look at that. Some of you guys in the beginning want to lose a few pounds for the summer. It's just a whim, isn't it? I want to lose 30 pounds, X, Y, and Z, change my life, change my marriage, get my sex life back, sleep better, breathe better, all these different things, optimize my health, stay alive, see the kids, see the grandkids. That's a massive reason why. You're always going to have excuses in your head, but they're just in your head. I've never met anyone that's got a lifestyle or obstacles in the way that stop them losing all the weight they want. And that's the honest truth. Because ultimately, if we strip it back, the weight loss that you lose over the next 3 to 6 months, some of you, is going to come down to literally one thing: the amount of food that you put in your mouth. I spoke to loads of guys in the last 6 months. I've got no time to be on a healthy eating plan. I'm like, well, if I'm being a bit facetious, well, currently you're eating too much food because you've got 50 pounds to lose. So I'm actually going to save you time because we're actually going to eat slightly fewer calories. So we're actually going to spend less time eating. And they're like, okay, I don't get it. But ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to. So time's never an issue. It's not an issue. It's about getting the priorities right. Okay. And your circumstances aren't unique, but how you deal with them, your response to them is entirely up to you. Choose to play the victim and buy into the bullshit story that you're telling yourself, or you say to yourself, despite what's going on here, because this is my life, I'm still going to make this work. And that's where people will succeed in this. And this is true for business, for making money, for being a great parent, all of the things that we want in a life, all the success, all the things we're trying to achieve. Okay. So never feel sorry for yourself. Although we do, right? We do. We all feel sorry for ourselves. Things aren't working. Oh, I can't do this. It's this. It's not fair. Look, life's not fair. That's the truth. Life's not fair. Life's hard at times. Absolutely, it's fucking hard at times. But regardless of what we've got going on, we can still put a couple of key things in to move the needle forward, and that's the response we're looking for. I kind of touched on this before. People often, their whole identity will be wrapped around becoming that victim. Okay, you've got to recognize this. I think maybe this is you now at the moment to a certain extent. It certainly could have been some of you to bring you to this point. Absolutely. But you don't have to continue to be that way. You've been too busy for so long, it's now who you are. Unfortunately, some people are always going to be too busy and will never get round to this. And again, that often comes from a lack of value around their own health. And sometimes, dare I say it, not that I would ever wish this on anyone, they almost need a health scare to kick them into the, okay, now I need to take this fucking seriously. And again, it's not a lesson I would actually give someone, but sometimes it's what they need. And I've seen it make a big difference. Someone has a heart attack. Again, I'm not saying someone should, but I've seen it. A couple of people in 20 years, heart attack, made a radical change, stopped smoking, stopped drinking, lost 4 stone, so 50, 60 pounds. But it's not where we want to go. We want to change before that happens. Okay. Misery loves company. You bond with others over how hard everything is. Oh, you're not going to believe what's going on in my life. Oh, you've got the same arts, and you end up having that. And I hate this phrase, the old trauma bonding. Don't like it, but it's true. Very American type phrase, trauma bonding. But people, that misery loves company, because people don't like to see other people succeed. Generally, they don't. But if things are going bad in your life, you see other people failing as well. Almost makes you feel, oh, it's not so bad. You pull each other down. Okay. And that becomes their identity. And you'll know people like this. You'll know people like this, and they almost thrive on the things going wrong in their life, because that's just who they are. You know these people, you know you do. And people expect you to make excuses because you always have. Especially if you struggle with your weight. Maybe you said, I've tried this diet, never works. Screw this. And people are almost expecting that answer, that result from you. Oh, but he goes on all the diets, they never work. So when you don't do that, they're like, okay, that's not right. And this can actually bring people back to not making changes, because their identity has been wrapped up in so much in their own failure that success almost seems foreign to them. It's actually more comfortable to stay playing the victim, because again, you can't fail when you're the victim. So the story, the victim story, is more comfortable than the solution. This is insane when you think about it. The story of not getting the thing you want is almost more comfortable than the thing you want. And almost the fear of success. Insane, really. insane. And look, this is kind of on this part as well. Especially, this could happen to someone, to some of you that start to lose a good amount of weight, and often happens when it could be wife, partner, brother, sister, best friend. And let's hope it's not, but it often is someone close. If you start moving towards where you want to go, you start losing a load of weight over a period of time. This person, you're the person you're close to, family member, friend, colleague, they've got two choices. They either move with you and support the goal, or maybe they even join in themselves. Maybe they've got a bit of weight to lose, and they support your goal and they move with you, or they stay there. Now, very often, if they stay there, that gap has to be closed because it becomes really uncomfortable. Becomes really uncomfortable. And so what they'll do, they'll inadvertently or subconsciously make little remarks. Well, don't lose too much weight now. You look like you need a meal, or I preferred you when you were chunky. You'll hear these things, and all they're trying to do, they don't know that they're not consciously doing it. Very rarely consciously doing it. Sometimes you get some evil bastard that will want to pull you back, and they know that they're doing it, but not often. It's done unconsciously or subconsciously. They pull you back because that gap becomes comfortable. They have to move forward, and usually because they're a little bit jealous that they can't do what you're trying to do. Okay, so that victim story become more comfortable than the solution. Here's where we look at switching from victim to owner. Owning the decision and moving away from buying that own bullshit. So rather than asking why is this happening to me, start asking what am I going to do about it. Through a reframing. Why me? Why has it gone wrong? Look, life, God, universe, whatever you believe in, indiscriminate. No one is no one is singling you out. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to really, really good people sometimes. Things go wrong. But wherever you are in your life right now, that's where you are in your life right now. And you can sit there and think, fuck me, I've got nothing going for me. Everything's going wrong. And buy your own bullshit and not make any changes. Or this is where I am. What am I going to do about it? What can I do about it? What steps can I make to move me out of the shit, to move me away from where I am at the moment? And change the language that you talk about to yourself. I can't do this because with I can if I, or rather than saying I can't do this at the moment, but I can learn the skills so that I can. Because I can tell you right now, let's take it back to what we're doing. All of you, by the end of our very first call, so Rob and Wade tomorrow, Wade was in the 14-day group the other day, you're going to know how to lose body fat. We're going to learn that on the very first call. You know that. We're going to control and track calories, increase protein, get walking, and lift weights a couple of times a week. That's fat loss. Okay, so you know what to do. What we're going to learn is how to put that into practice in your life. And at the moment, you guys don't know, or you didn't know. You didn't know how to do it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on the program, which is why I've got a coach teaching me how to teach this shit to you. The mindset stuff, or how to build a fitness business, or how to look after clients. I had to learn that from someone. I didn't know. But you've got to be looking at things like, I don't know this now, but I can learn the skills. And there's a big difference. There's a big difference. So you move away from that victim. This is where I am, and move into the sort of endless possibilities of where you can take this. Okay. So owning your own choices, choosing Netflix over the gym. Well, look, there's nothing wrong with Netflix. We watch Netflix every night, one or two episodes. It drives me insane. My we like all the different, the series, the 6 episodes or the 8 episodes on Netflix and Amazon, ITV, all those different things. But my wife will only watch one episode. So we can never watch a film because she can't sit still or can't concentrate. She's half 8, she's dropping off at night. We'll put something on when we finish this call tonight. She's out doing a boot camp at the moment with 20 ladies, and we'll put something on. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with Netflix, because as long as you're still getting everything else you need to get done. But if you're using that as an excuse to don't have time to prep food or fill in your details on MyFitnessPal or not do your feedback form, I didn't have time. Yet you watch 3 hours of Netflix a night. Okay. And responsibility is the price of freedom. And you've heard this phrase, discipline is freedom as well. And it is. Same as responsibility. Jocko Willink, he's an ex-Marine in the States, wrote a good book called Discipline is Freedom. So you either pay it or you stay stuck. So you become responsible for your decisions and decide, I'm actually going to make some changes here. I'm not going to, wherever I am in life, and this is with what we're doing, or maybe it's in business or in relationships or anything you've got in life, you can either stay there and say, this is it, and give up, or you can say, okay, I'm not happy with this. I'm going to make some changes and own the decision. And here's the harsh truth. Last slide. Life's never going to get easier, less busy or less stressful. And that takes me back to what I said. There's never going to be a perfect time to do this. I brought on, I think Khalid came on in December. And I think given the choice, he probably would have waited till January. I said, it's better to come on in December because you can learn the skills in typically the worst month for most people in terms of food and alcohol. He doesn't drink, but for most people. Because if we can teach you how to do it at the worst times, imagine what you can do when you have a more clear run. But the truth is, there's never going to be a clear run. Okay? You can spend your life waiting for perfect conditions, or you can take action now. Right? You can say, I'm going to do this despite what's going on. Now, if someone is about to go on a 3-week all-inclusive to the Bahamas, it's probably not the best time to start. Get back and then we'll go. But in general life, normal work and family life, doesn't matter what the time is to go now. If you're ready to do something, you want to do this, we can go now and still lose weight. And playing victim keeps you safe and stuck. Taking ownership is uncomfortable, isn't it? Sometimes terrifying, but it's also liberating because then you know the truth and you realize that you can do this regardless of what you've got going on. And I'll finish with this. The moment you stop blaming circumstances is the moment everything changes. So you look at where you are in your life and say, regardless of what's going on, I'm going to put a couple of simple things in place. And we're going to get the ball rolling, moving in the right direction.